and I'm talking about Mars in Libra. Very important placement. Hey, it's Sam, and I'm talking about Mars in Libra. When Mars is in Libra, it's in a sort of opposite position from where he feels powerful. Mars is the planet of strength, which gives us the strength to do what we know is right, rather than look for things outside of us that are not right and then try to change them, or try to change the people who aren't doing the things that we say aren't right. So when Mars is really strong, and when a person has a powerful Mars, they actually walk the talk. And the reason we don't always walk the talk is because it's hard to do. It's hard to do what we know is right. And we all pretty much know what's right, but we don't do it. Instead, we form some opinion about it. We have an opinion about what's right. And then we do what's easy. We do what makes us comfortable. We do what makes us happy in the moment, which is usually not what is right. For instance, we know it's right to eat a certain amount of food, exercise, get up a little earlier, do our meditation, do yoga. But all of those things are actually very hard to do. It's hard to do that. We want to eat the food that tastes the best. When we get good taste in food, we want to eat a lot of it, almost to where we can't stuff our face anymore. We want to lay around and be comfortable and be happy in the moment rather than work out. And we want to sleep a little longer rather than get up early. See, Mars gives us the capacity to suffer for our principles. And what's right is a principle. This is right. It's a matter of principle. And it gives us, and when he's tough and strong, then we're tough and strong enough to suffer for our principles, to go through that little bit of suffering. And when he's weak, we make others suffer for our principles in the form of our arguments and our fights and our battles with them. So in Libra, Libra is really the sign of others. It's the sign of being comfortable, of being happy. You see, this is how Venus and Mars are opposite. The planets have an opposite, and the opposite of Mars is Venus. Because Mars is the one that wants to make us strong and tough. Venus is the one that wants to make us happy. So all those things I just said, that's hard for Mars to do. It's hard for Mars to do them because of the Venus area of life. Sleeping longer, Venus. Eating a lot of good food, Venus. Being comfortable instead of tough, working out, Venus. Right? And so when Mars is in Libra, we have this tendency to get into battle over what we think is right. There's a lot of strong opinions often when you have this tendency, or when you have this placement. And opinions are the realm of Mars. They're not the realm of Mercury. Mercury's about ideas. It's flexible. It's not an opinion. An opinion is a black and white thought. At best, thoughts are not opinions. Thoughts are not black and white. Opinions are black and white, and opinions are based on principles, like I said. And Mars is what gives us the integrity to put those principles into practice, like I said. This is right, this is wrong, I have an opinion about it. Rather than have an opinion that we then thrust on people and then argue with them about, like, this is right, that is wrong, why don't you see it my way? Again, powerful Mars, instead of turning it into opinion, it goes inward and turns into real strength, where we actually walk the talk. So Libra, of course, is that sign. It's a Rajasic sign. It's ruled by Venus. Rajasic is about desire, stimulation, pleasure, happiness. Venus is air, which is about other people. So the enjoyment and the desire to connect to other people through words and through ideas, and to experience a sort of pleasing aesthetic, in the form of the art and music, and enjoying individuals and then also people and culture in general. And so, the desire of Libra is to bring about these harmonious, pleasant interactions between an individual and then groups of individuals. And it's where we have this capacity to yield and to want to make others happy. And again, it's ruled by Venus, and in particular in Libra, as opposed to Taurus, which is the feminine reflective quality of Venus. In Libra, it's an external, it's a projection of Venus, the assertive quality of Venus into the world, which is to actively create harmony. Whereas with Taurus, it's to experience pleasure and to pull Venus energy toward us. Libra is to push Venus energy out into the realm of others. So when we see something that's in conflict, the Venus part of us wants to make the conflict okay, wants to bring people together, so that there's not this arguing over principle. Venus is the part, as an air sign, the air signs are about finding commonality among ideas, among opinions. It might seem like this opinion and that opinion has nothing to do with each other. Of course, that's not true. We can always find commonality, and a high quality of Libra is diplomacy, where everyone can get their needs met and get their desires fulfilled. At least that's what Libra is good at doing, is finding the commonality amongst polarized ideas and opinions. And for instance, there's a thing called nonviolent communication, which was started by a man named Marshall Rosenberg, and he brings things down to needs, that we all have fundamental needs. And if you can connect with individuals on the level of the need, you'll find that their ways to meet the needs become secondary, because we all have the same fundamental needs. And so, this sort of tolerance for everyone and tolerance for everyone's desires and needs is very much a Libra thing. So when you bring this black and white, forceful, aggressive pursuit of strength, which is Mars, into the realm of wanting everybody to be happy, which is Libra, you can see how these things can get disrupted. Because Libra is trying to join through commonality, join through ideas, and Mars is trying to distinguish and delineate by finding where things are not in alignment, because on the realm of principle, everything is not right. Everything is not relative. This principle is right, this one is wrong. For instance, it's wrong to murder people. It's a principle that's it's really sort of hard to argue with. There's all kinds of principles where we can't share. But of course, then when you trace that back to, the reason that's a universal principle is because on the level of the needs, we all have the need to want to survive. So the benefit of Mars and Libra is you can see where someone will work hard to defend, social equality, where someone will work hard to preserve and to protect, a sacred social space. And you do see some people who have that, but the challenge is to not be aggressive about it. The challenge is to not push those agendas in spite of another's views, and to not polarize things around principle, rather bring things together around commonality. Because principles and opinions are polarizing. One of the problems with Mars, especially as it relates to, in any sort of conversation, is Mars is polarizing. He polarizes things and tends to back people into corners and already start with a preconceived idea and a judgment that something is wrong. And then Mars gets activated because Mars is a tamasic planet. So you have to understand, when we sense something is wrong, the tamasic planets of Mars and Saturn come out to destroy what we think is wrong or protect us from what we think is wrong or harmful. So when we see something that's wrong, it's Mars that comes out to want to fix it and change it if it's important enough. And so when Mars gets into the conversation, Mars has already decided it's wrong. And if it's about a person, this is what's wrong, this is what you did. Here's my judgment and my opinion about it. And that's where Mars starts the discussion. This is why when someone has Mars that's too prominent, especially if it interferes with, if it's like, let's say like exchanging with Mercury, especially when it's interfering with Mercury areas. Exchanges with Mercury, people that are ruled by Mars have to be careful with this, of mistaking confrontation for communication. Starting a conversation with a confrontation, saying you did this and this is what I think, and then backing someone into a corner, that's not a good place to start a conversation. And if Mars is too prominent in someone's mind, that's just their style. It's not a good communication style, it's difficult. So when Mars is in Libra, either in a birth chart or in the sky, we need to be careful of this confrontational communication style that starts with an opinion. It doesn't start with something that's open, because opinions are closed. Instead of, for instance, instead of, let's say, having a conversation that says, hey, you know what? I noticed, the way you talk to that person might have left them feeling kind of disrespected, and I'm wondering if you noticed that, or did I see that wrong, or here's what I observed. Very neutral. This is good communication. This is Mercury. Very neutral. I observed this. Like one of the things in nonviolent communication is, is not accusing, is saying something like, I observed you saying this, or I understood that you just said that, and when you said that, I experienced this. And you're staying with yourself. You're saying, I experienced this. I experienced you speaking with that person in a way that I'm not sure if you're aware. It sounded like you were accusing them of something when I'm not sure that's what you intended. Or you're leaving it open, right? You're describing your experience. The opposite, when we're more confrontational, is when you say, who do you think you are to talk to him like that? What do you, why are you yelling at this person? Who do you think you are? Could be exactly the same situation, two different ways to approach it, right? Or let's say if it's, instead of it's a third party, it's, who are you to talk to me like that? Instead of saying, for instance, when you said that, I don't know if you intended it, but it sounded very much like you were accusing me of something, and that's really wasn't my experience. My experience wasn't what you were relating to me. That's one way to say it, and the other way is, who do you think you are to talk to me like that? Right? You can totally hear the difference. So we got to be careful of that aggressive style of communication when Mars is in Libra. So keep that in mind, and if you know someone who has Mars in Libra, notice that style. Or, Mars in the air signs, or when Mars and Mercury interact especially, like when they exchange, when they get in each other's signs, or when you get Mars in air signs, there can be that kind of, or if Mars is in the first house. It's just a style, and often the person doesn't realize it, and if you cannot take the bait, if you cannot get backed into a corner and polarized, then maybe you can do exactly what I said. Like if someone says to you, if someone comes at you with that kind of Mars and says, who do you think you are to talk to me like that? Blah, blah, blah. Instead of responding back like that, you can say, maybe you're not understanding this, but that really lands to me very much like an accusation. And it's not keeping with my experience. That's not how I intended, and that's not really what I did. So maybe this isn't what you're trying to accomplish by this confrontation, or you probably wouldn't even say confrontation, because then the person is going to defend that. So it's very easy to get backed into a corner and polarized. So be aware of that.